everybody ready, I hope.
Yeah.
Altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Action Bodhicitta Prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Long Refuge Prayer. We take refuge in the kind, root, and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yadams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, the possessors of the eye of wisdom. Until I attain taking the Bodhisattva vow, until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva path, I too, for the sake of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Short refuge prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. 4 immeasurables. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So now if everybody has their 4 thoughts to turn the mind to the Dharma. So now we'll recite each one of these, and following each one individually, we will contemplate the meaning of that particular prayer. So if we can start on page 1, precious human life. The freedoms and advantages so extremely difficult to obtain, excuse me, the freedoms and advantages so extremely difficult to obtain accomplish the purpose of human life. If one does not achieve benefit from this now, how could this opportunity come again? Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When one obtains a body which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain ultimate liberation, joyous result. It has been said, to be born a precious human being is more difficult than a blind turtle at the bottom of a vast ocean, greater than all the oceans combined on the earth, rising up from the depths of the water once every 100 years, in order to poke its head through a single small wooden yoke floating on an ocean's surface. Those who have good fortune to make a connection with the teachings are rare, and those who really take them to heart and embody them in their actions even rarer, as rare, in fact, as stars in broad daylight. So please contemplate the meaning of this prayer, these sections, read this page. You can go back to page 7 and 8 and examine the 7 leisure or the 8 leisures and the 10 endowments to contemplate the meaning of this. So we'll have a contemplation to allow enough time to do that. If you'd like to sit and just contemplate quietly, that's fine. You can open your eyes, close your eyes, but this is some time to be able to concentrate on the meaning of precious human life. Okay. Next is on page 2 and 3. Ed, would you like to read this out loud for everybody? Page 2 and 3, please. This is the meditation, the contemplation on impermanence. Turn your microphone on, please.
I've kind of misplaced that right now, so I'd rather take a rain check.
Oh, okay. Okay, then listen carefully, please. No matter what has been done, nothing benefits at the time of death. Worldly activities, yes, they are lies. The 8 worldly dharmas are like a painted rainbow. Think you can put your trust in them? In the certainty of death and knowing that nothing remains long, quickly accomplish liberation. Impermanence makes departure certain, like the shadow of the setting sun. Abandoning laziness and indifference, blaze like fear, fire and fierce diligence. The life of beings, this life is impermanent, like clouds in the autumn sky. Birth and death migrators are the same, like actors or a play or dance. The life of beings is like lightning in the sky, like water falling from a steep mountain cliff. It departs quickly, quickly. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend any time like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. The 8 worldly concerns, or the 8 worldly dharmas, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace, praise and blame. Contemplate the meaning of impermanence. Next is page 4, the suffering of samsara. Consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so, great fear and dread arise in the heart. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. The 3 higher realms of samsara are the God realm, the jealous God realm, and the human realm. The 3 lower realms are the animal realm, the preta realm or the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realms. Human suffering has the suffering of samsara, the suffering of change, and the all-pervading suffering of composite phenomena. Contemplate the meaning of the suffering of samsara. Next is page 5, karma. karma, cause, and result. Even if one were a king at the time of death, one's possessions, enjoyments, friends, and retinue will not follow. But wherever that sentient being goes, his karma follows after him like a shadow. The fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the Dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. The Buddha said when asked, "What was my previous life?" What you are now is what you have been. What you will be is what you do now. Contemplate the meaning of karma, cause, and result. Okay, thank you. So this is a practice that we work to and incorporate into our daily practice to remember the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, why we are here, why we continue to be here, why we keep practicing this. So, because it helps to stabilize our fundamentals of what our motivation for a precious human life, to understand impermanence, to understand the suffering of samsara and to understand karma, which is, this is the result of karma. Samsara is the result of karma. Samsara or happiness. Happiness might be described as nirvana. Nirvana actually would be a transcendence of happiness and suffering. That it's beyond the dualistic mind. The dualism of happiness and suffering would be in samsara. That's a natural part of samsara. So tonight we're going to look a little bit more at this karma. We had a very good discussion last week, and we talked about the 10 virtues and the 10 non-virtues. So we need to be able to make some other points about this that are intellectual thoughts about this, because these are questions that may come up in your mind. And then if you enter into a conversation with someone, these are questions that invariably come up by others who say, well, is karma this, is karma that, how do you know, and so on. So here there are some reference points on which to be able to talk about karma. So before we get started in that, does anybody have any questions or comments that you want to be sure that we talk about, that you want to have answered now? Okay. So the characteristics of karma are on page 9 of the outline book that you all have. So the characteristics, we talked about the 10 non-virtues and the 10 virtues that we talked about last time. And then the third is the karma and the results of unshakable meditation. Karma and the result of unshakable meditation, meditative concentration, the state of mind. By practicing the cause meditative concentration on equipoise, loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, one will obtain the results born of meditative concentration. So what we're trying to do is to find this meditative equipoise, this balance. You know, because when we're in meditation, thoughts are still coming, things are still coming through. And to be able to be in that balance, that state of balance where we're not interrupted by those thoughts coming through. If we are interrupted, we need to look at, we may need to look at those thoughts and be able to understand them. If we break those thoughts down and look at them with loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, or bodhicitta, this is the meditative concentration of the mind that we're trying to develop, and that we're not upset by these thoughts. If they're thoughts that, you know, are about harming others or being harmed ourselves, causing distractions in people's lives and so on, all these things we need to be able to bring in, to allow to come in, allow to go out. But if they stick with us, we need to be able to have a means by which we can analyze them. We can see what they are. We do that through meditative equipoise, through a balance. And there's a strength that comes with this. That is a strength, it speaks of a strength. And the strength really is the Buddha nature that we have within ourselves. So the more that we develop our meditation practice, the more that we develop this equipoise, the more Buddha-like we become, the more Buddha nature we become. We begin to recognize that. So it's like a well that we're pulling water out of, but this water is our meditative concentration, is our ability to not be interrupted, our ability not to be upset, to be able to look at things and not be upset by them. So if we turn the page and go to page 10, we're looking at now, this here is a Roman numeral 2. We're looking at the Roman numeral 3, the ascription. Ascription. Yes,
Do you want me to turn the water off outside?
Oh, thank you. I forgot. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I forgot to turn the watering the plants off. Ascription. Ascription of karma means that you experience the results of the karma you create. Results can ripen in the skandhas related to the actor and not to others. So if you ascribe something, you're assigning something. You know, it's a word I'm not used to using, ascription, but we can understand that it's something that is directly related to something that we are doing. It is ascribed to that particular characteristic, to that particular function. So the ascription of karma means that you experience the results of the karma you create. Nobody else experiences your karma, not directly. You create karma, you have to receive the benefits or the negativities of that karma. And you do not have to follow anybody else's karma. The results will ripen in the skandhas related to the actor and not to others. So if you take on somebody else's karma, well, that's a choice you make, and that becomes an action on your behalf. But that person's karma is not predetermined to be your karma. Only your karma is predetermined by your actions, by your causes. So that's one thing that's very important to understand, to be able to make that distinction. The skandhas are the five compounded nature of what it is to be a human being. So that we have a form, we have feeling, we have perception, we have contact, and we have consciousness. So these are five parts of being a human being that are common to all of us. And these are called the skandhas, the form, our physical body, the feelings that we have, both our tactile feelings, but our emotional feelings, all these different feelings that we have, our perception, those things that we develop, the expectations that we can develop out of these feelings, out of our form, out of our body. And then the contacts that we have, the relationships that we have with other beings, and the names and so on, the labels, the things that we do interacting with other beings and so on, that we are affected by and we affect others by. And then the consciousness that is processing all this, the mental aspect of this is processing on this. So these are called the five skandhas. So it says the results will ripen in the skandhas related to the actor and not to others. So in other words, our karma is going to relate to our body. It's going to relate to our feelings. It's going to relate to our perceptions. It's going to relate to our relationships, our contacts, and it's going to relate to our consciousness and so on. So here it details the five skandhas here in this little thing here. And it says the aggregates to attachment, the truth of suffering. So the craving or desire attaches to the skandhas, appearing as heaps, personality, characteristics, or groups, birth, old age, death, duration, and change. So these are the aspects in which this karma affects who we are. You know, what are we? You know, so these skandhas begin to define who we are in this samsaric existence, So this temporary existence, this existence that has happiness in it, that has suffering in it. Suffering can become happiness. Happiness can become suffering.
Hey, Lance,
So, yes, go ahead.
you mentioned page 9. There are pages to this page beyond page 8?
No. You don't you
okay.
have this book here?
Yes, I do. Okay. I thought you were still in the page.
No, I held it up for everybody to see, but
Yeah, it was a second that I was looking down. So thank you.
the buzzer didn't go off.
No.
Okay, so now we're on page 10. We're talking about page 10 now.
Thank you.
So what is affected by karma are the skandhas within us. You know, this is who we are. This is what's affected by karma. Then we can compound that and affect many other things around us and so on. But it's the karma that is affecting the skandhas. So this was a very difficult thing for me to be able to understand. It's very abstract for me. And it took quite a long time, years. So if at this point right now, you're feeling quizzical about this, what does this mean and so on, it's one of the things that needs meditative concentration upon. It needs being able to explore, being able to look at it and think about it, meditate on it and so on. So don't feel bad that you don't get this right away. It is abstract. It's a new way of thinking about ourselves and how we are affected by our activities. This is what karma is. So karma has a strict result. It says one will experience happiness and suffering without mistake through the results of virtuous or non-virtuous karma. One will experience happiness through accumulation of virtue. By accumulating non-virtue, one will experience the result of suffering. So we have this, there is this strict result that things will happen in kind. If we do good deeds, good things will happen to us and continue to happen to us. But if we corrupt those good deeds and we do non-virtuous deeds, then the results that will come to us will be negative results. Difficulties, obstacles will come to us and so on. So maybe you've seen this yourself in your own life. Maybe you haven't thought about it, but maybe by thinking about it and looking at the changes that happen in our lives and so on, and see how where some things just created a lot of difficulty for us. And when we overcame them, all of a sudden, like a weight was lifted off of our shoulders and things became easier for us. Likewise, if we make a bad decision, we follow a bad path or something, it's like we're carrying around this weight with us everywhere we go. So it's our responsibility. This is our karma. We have our life to live. We cannot pick up the dharma, the karma of somebody else. We don't have to. If we do, then that is because we wanted to do that out of our confusion. So we don't have to do that. Now, many people can share the same karma or same karmic situation. So like, take for instance, you know, what's happened down in Florida. You know, all these people in this building falls down. Was this chaos? Was this something that was predetermined? You know, if there's an airplane accident, or if there's an accident out in the intersection near where you live, and 3 or 4 people are involved, you know, is this something that is just random? Is just this truly an accident that there was no plan or anything like that? Or was it that there's something else, this force, this power, this law of reciprocity that is in place where all these people, all these situations kind of collide at the same time, and maybe for different reasons, but nevertheless, they experience a same result. They experience something. Maybe it's a good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. That there are, yes, go ahead.
I may be trying to I may be getting tied up in the language here, but on page 5 of the sheets, not of the book.
Yes.
And the quotation is, the Buddha said when asked, what was my previous life? What you
Yes,
are now, what you are now is what you have been.
right,
What you will be is what you do now.
correct.
All right, if I'm bringing forth bad karma from my past, how do I turn that around and do things? If the bad karma is what I am now, how out of that context do I switch to good karma?
Okay, it's a good question. And the answer is, we're not 100% bad karma or 100% good karma.
Okay.
We're a combination of many things. And many things are hidden to us and don't come up until the conditions and causes are ready for those things to happen.
That's helpful. Thanks.
So we have to be brave enough. We have to have the courage to allow karma to ripen. We shouldn't suppress it. When something is coming up and it's difficult, we should accept that as a challenge, but not as an obstacle. If we make it an obstacle, then it continues to be a problem. But if we greet that with understanding, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, bodhicitta, that's how we transform karma, negative karma, into good karma, by recognizing it and liberating it.
Can I add something pedestrian?
Sure.
Ed, I have a girlfriend who is not anything close to Buddhist, but she tells me fairly often that the life that I have right now is the result of the decisions that previous Rebecca made,
Right.
knowing the best that previous Rebecca knew what to do. And
Okay.
that for me to kind of move into a better position in life, whatever that may mean, I have now Rebecca has to think about what future Rebecca would like now Rebecca to have thought about making decisions, right? What's the best that I know to do now to put future Rebecca in the best position?
Correct.
So your karma at any given time, I'm going back to what you said earlier, Lance, it's not all or nothing. I mean, you have some good and some bad.
Correct.
What you're trying to do is give rise to the good karma.
Well, you're trying to give rise to it, but you're also allowing the bad karma to rise up too. We have to allow it to come up. That's why I say we have to allow our karma to ripen, whether it's good karma or bad karma, allow it to ripen. Now, we may not know exactly what it is that makes it ripen, but when it comes up and we see the difficulty, we have to then embrace it. We then need to allow it to come and not suppress it.
But
So
for,
Lance,
I'm sorry,
go ahead, Ed.
Here, let Ed finish his thought.
for Rebecca to give rise to to make decisions now that will lead to the Rebecca she wants to be in the future. What she, but right now she's a mix of good karma and bad. What she has to do is figure out a way for the good karma to go up the scale and the bad karma to go down, right?
No, to transform,
To
to transform the bad karma to good karma,
Okay.
or to neutralize it. You know, good karma implies an action
Mhm.
that is going to have a result, and that result is going to be good karma.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
And then you have that karma then to deal with. Take, for instance, you know, we're born into this life. We're born into, let's just say, for time's sake, let's say that we're all born here in America, in what, you know, seems to be, you know, the best place that we could possibly be born on the planet at any given time. But meanwhile, we still have a responsibility to that karma to maintain that which we love so much. So so that action of being born here in this land means that we have a responsibility to it. However, we can have neutral karma where we have no responsibility because we're not taking an action. And that gets more subtle than the dramatic good karma, bad karma, suffering, and happiness if there's neutral karma.
Okay. I've got a personal semi-emergency call here, so I'm going to be gone briefly, but I'll be back.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry it happened right now, but
That's all right. You got to do what you got to do. Thank you. So this idea of neutral karma, does anybody have a question about that? Okay,
No, no, I just like to make sure that I have the right view. The karmic winds, as it were, that I've been kicking up for eternity, that are sort of visiting me now. They're sort of coming back around. They're a combination of a previous life karma, of unripe karma, and of 5 minutes ago karma, right?
correct. It's a figure of speech, the karmic winds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I like the figure of speech.
Okay, just
Yeah.
pointing it out.
Yeah, it's like the wake of a ship. You
Yeah,
know, if a ship is cruising through the Atlantic Ocean, the repercussions of that passage are never really going to go away.
yeah,
So if we look at the water as if wind, it just
Right.
makes more sense to me. Thank you.
right. Was that, you were just making that point? And
I just wanted to make sure that I was
yeah.
not mixing it up there.
And the karmic winds, that metaphor is used in the Bardo Todal.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, so there's lots of reference to that.
Yeah, and many of the Mahayana call it more of a breeze,
Yes.
implying its subtlety.
So to carry the metaphor, we can think of ourselves like a leaf.
Yeah.
You know, that is being blown about by these karmic winds.
Yes, which we have been helping to create.
Correct. We've
Since-
created
yeah.
those winds. Yes,
Yeah.
we've created those winds.
I mean, this is a very difficult subject, and I'll always have a incredibly hard time with the Hindu concepts that the Buddha accepted. But obviously, it's has to do with the time and the place that Buddha was in when he came up with his views. But what does a modern Buddhist say about like genetics, socioeconomic issues? There, all these scientific types of things, evolution, like depression, could be, inheritance and things like that, alcoholism, things like that. What would a modern Buddhist? And I think there would be an incredible variety of views, personally, views that I've
There's an incredible variety of what?
views on the literalness of karma and rebirth, that depending on the school, I know a lot of Western Zens that don't think this is a very important concept, that they're more concerned about this this life and becoming awakened, and they sort of take this agnostic view. But I guess, help me out in terms of what our particular lineage believes, and is this something that is like a you must believe in this, or it's just too heretical to be accepted in this lineage's sangha, or things like that?
Okay. Well, first off, all these views are all part of phenomenal nature. They're all fabrications of our minds, of human beings. They're all conceptual ideas to be able, for us to be able to try and understand what is going on, all these dynamics that are happening in our lives and so on. So, and they are subject to, they are created by the same karma that creates everything else. You know, so all this is all part of phenomenal nature. Karma only happens temporarily in phenomenal nature. In absolute nature, there's no karma. There doesn't need to be any karma. Karma is a function of something that we have created for ourselves. And then we become enslaved by it, either the good karma or the bad karma, and the mixture of it and so on. So we do it to ourselves. The way it manifests is the same way everything else manifests. Through the body, through the intellect, through nature, what we call nature and so on. All these are all manifestations of that karma, of that conceptualization. What is the creation of this? We don't know. And that's one of the things that we come to accept. Now, nobody says you've got to accept this or you're going to wind up in hell or something like that. What we do say is if you hurt other people to the point of taking their lives, you're going to wind up in your own hell. If you steal from people and you lie to people and you have great greediness and everything, you're going to wind up as a hungry ghost, which is a human being. The hell beings are human beings. The animals are human beings. We use the animals, or human beings can behave like animals and so on. So the point here is that we create this all for ourselves. And we don't know what caused all this or what is the creation of all this. All that we know is that we have to abide within this, but there is a way to liberate ourselves from it. And we practice that, we try that, we experiment with that, and we find that it does work. If I simplify my life, I'm simplifying my enslavements, all those fabrications. If I stop telling lies, I don't have to remember all those lies. I don't have to justify them to other people, and I don't have to justify them to myself. My web becomes much simpler. And this is becoming more and more and more and more neutral, more and more liberated, more and more simple, and so on. So we can see this, we can practice this, and we need to practice it on our own. So to say that you're going to be excommunicated from a lineage or something like that is not necessarily true, not for thinking these things or even discussing these things, bringing these things up. What could, be serious is if, you become criminal. Nobody wants a criminal in their midst, somebody who won't listen, who won't adhere to the moral ethics, and someone who is going around killing or hurting people or manipulating people. They may need to be ostracized. They may need to be set aside. They may be told to leave the community or something like that. So maybe something like that. But in terms of being a heretic, of talking against the Buddhist principles, that's an intellectual process. And I don't think anybody's going to do that unless they begin to drive wedges between the Sangha, the groups of people, and they do it maliciously and so on. So there's not that sense that you have to do this. And if you don't do this, you're going to, you're going to wind up in some kind of hell. The hell that you wind up in is your own creation. The hungry ghost realm that you wind up is your own creation. The animal realm is your own creation. The human realm is your own creation. The demigod realm is your own creation. The God realm is your own creation. So it's all symbolic, it's metaphoric. So we have to always be able to stand back and take a look at that. So I hope that answers the question, at least enough to be able to say, okay, I need to examine this a little bit more. I need to understand this personally, how this works. You don't have to totally comprehend it, but at least enough to be able to say, okay, I need to investigate this some more. What do you think, Grant?
I mean, I totally agree with the principle that, actions have consequences, but, I think bad things happen to virtuous people. I think
Bad things happen what?
Bad things happen to, totally virtuous people. And, if a bad thing happens, I'm not going to say, oh, it was because of karma that, the Martin Luther Kings or Gandhi's got shot or things like that. But there's also this, let's say, genetics, there's socioeconomic issues. Your upbringing, causes certain thoughts, your experience. And
It's all karma.
it's from a religious view, but from a literal view, I can see it being more. I can see it being
Well,
genetic.
we're not separating the two. We're saying that everything is spiritual, whether it wants to be or not. And that's a fundamental point, that what we are doing is recognizing the spiritual aspect of our lives, of phenomenal nature, of nature itself. There is a spirituality that is inherent there. And that's what we're coming to recognize.
Well, what about genetics? What would your explanation? It has no effect on our.
It's the way karma manifests. It's another way in which karma manifests.
Okay, and then that doesn't totally make sense to me, but maybe.
Well, there are scientists who are coming to that understanding. There are scientists who are now looking at that, saying we've tried to explain everything that we can, but there seems to be this other thing that is happening. And then and some people are standing up and saying, well, maybe it's this spirituality. We had a lot of conversation about this last year about David Bohm, who is a great scientist who did a lot of work, a theoretical physicist who did a lot of work, who began to, expound this theory of that there is this spirituality. So in physics, whether it's in genetics, this is all part of the experience of being in phenomenal nature.
I was interested to see an article recently that suggested that trauma can be encoded in your genetics and passed on to your children. That if you experience trauma, war, being driven from your homeland, the repercussions of that trauma can go through generations.
I wouldn't doubt it, but yeah. They say that psychosis is experienced by the embryo in the womb.
I think these are great examples of the radical interconnectedness that we experience as beings who are not really separate in a in an actual sense, and so most of what we experience is co-created. It's like it arises through codependence, codependent arising, interdependent arising. So we're all in on it. We're engineering our physical life to create damage to ourselves and to our genes and
to the atmosphere and to
and to the universe.
all the inanimate stuff that seems to be inanimate. We're affecting that too. All right, thank you. Good points. And so let me move on, and then we'll circle back to more of this conversation. So there's a strict result. We just explained that. I just want to say it again. One will experience happiness and suffering without mistake through the results of virtuous or non-virtuous karma. One will experience happiness through accumulation of virtue. By accumulating non-virtue, one will experience the result of suffering. Then the next point, number 5, is increase from the small. Maturation of a big result from a small karma. For example, regarding one's non-virtuous deeds, it is said that one will experience a kalpa in the hell realms for each instant of a negative thought. So a kalpa is a very, very, very long period of time, an eon or something like that. So just by one negative thought here, it's saying that one can spend a great deal of time in a hell realm. Another way of saying this is you can be very virtuous all your life. You can be a great person. You could be someone who had lots of money and shared all the money. You gave it away. You were a great benefactor. You were somebody who took care of children. You took care of everybody. You taught people everything. But then somewhere along in your life, maybe when you're 60 or 70 years old, you had a moment of irrationality where you happened to have a weapon and you killed somebody. And it's like taking all that stuff and just pulling the rug from underneath that whole entire life of doing good stuff, because for that moment you had that irrational aggression and hatred, and all that was upset, and that being winds up in hell. Yes.
Lance, does it come down to whether is the consequence something that derives from you?
Of course.
So it comes down to whether in that moment of irrationality, and I pull a gun and I shoot someone, and I've lived a good life up to that moment, and I live a good life forever after that. And basically, am I able to forgive myself, to show myself compassion for a moment where I did something wrong?
Yes, because there are mitigating circumstances, and that needs to be taken into consideration. What was the motivation? Why did you kill somebody? And how did that mitigate the action that you took, and so on? It doesn't relieve you of the responsibility of having done that, but it still perhaps enables you to carry on in your life, like you said, with a degree of forgiveness, that there's an understanding there, and you're the only one that is recognizing that. It's all within yourself. There's not someone who's standing up on the clouds up there someplace who is going to pass judgment on you. We are the ones who pass judgment on ourselves. So when we say that we have, when we die, that we go to, this this bardo of reality, and how it is that we experience that bardo of reality is a direct reflection of how we have led our lives and what degrees of forgiveness we needed to have, and liberation, all these different things and so on, all come to bear in that. So yeah, we have this responsibility, and the responsibility is within ourselves, and we have to learn to recognize that and to accept that.
So in the traditional heaven and hell concept, right? I grew up Christian, I became Jewish as an adult, and
Right.
kind of, they all have some angle or another on this heaven and hell idea.
Right. But
And-
go ahead.
And I've always thought that heaven and hell are kind of defined with, in the moment after you die, looking back on your life and going, I did pretty good. And I have some compassion for myself for the places where I failed to hit the mark, versus, oh, that was awful, I did a really bad job. And then you have to kind of deal with that for eternity.
Well, what is eternity? But isn't that all here now? Isn't the heaven and the hell just conceptualization of what we think we are in the midst of right now?
Yeah.
We're creating our heaven and our hell right now. And
Well-
then when we die, when we give up our physical body and we become pure spirit, now there is a release, a liberation of those attachments of that body and so on. And now you have pure freedom. And what can you do with that freedom? So fundamentally, what we're saying as Buddhists, we're saying that everything we do is for the benefit of others. So I'm going to take that freedom and use that freedom for the benefit of others. But if I have difficulties, things that I need to learn, I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to dedicate that learning to the benefit of others. So just because, let's say, 90% of our lives have been pure and have been really great, but 10% was bad, we still have to take responsibility for that 10%. We're not off the hook for that 10%.
One thing that you mentioned, the fact that you were a Christian and then you're a Jew. One of the things that Christ said is that heaven and hell are here right now. And I could be paraphrasing it, but that's basically what he said. And
That's what we just said.
Sounds very Jewish.
what we say, what we say as what we're saying is that that same basic thing, that you're choosing your heaven or your hell. You're choosing the way that you go. You're choosing how difficult it's going to be or how easy it's going to be. And it's a shame that we can't learn that when we're in our teen years or in our school years, that we do the things that allow us to make things easier or more difficult.
I was in my 50s before I got this concept of future Rebecca and making decisions to make, essentially to put future Rebecca in heaven, right?
How does the Jewish perspective differ from the Christian perspective on heaven and hell? Or
Um, how far you want to go with this, Ed. Jews don't really have heaven and hell as concepts. They're much more like Buddhists in that regard, right? That what we're aware of is the time that spans from our birth to our death, where Christians kind of, your life is like this and your soul exists for eternity, and where you go after you die is the main focus of what you do in this little span of time, right? Jews don't pay a lot of attention to the idea of what happens in an afterlife. The point is to make the world better while we are here.
Okay.
Do they speak of a soul?
Sure.
Do the Jews speak of the
Sure.
soul?
Mm-hmm. Your neshama, your essence.
So the essence, so that essence, does that carry on, or is it just an unknown, and it's just like you said, the space and time in this particular lifetime is the only thing that we can control. So whatever it is beyond that, we'll leave that to God.
Precisely. So our rabbi used to talk about the afterlife being an all-you-can-eat buffet with 24-hour-a-day Torah study. Right? This was just her idea of the best thing you could spend eternity doing. But we don't know.
Okay.
So the focus is on what can we control? We can make things better here. And I think it fundamentally comes down to who wants to worship a God who would not think that was a good idea. Like, who would trip you up for that.
Okay. All right. So let me introduce this next point then. Then we can put this into the machine and we can talk about all this. The next is inevitability. Means that unless the antidote to a karma appears, the result will come without waste or loss, even though limitless kalpas have passed. Karma may lie dormant for a long time, but somehow when it meets with the proper conditions, the result will come about. Thus, one becomes afraid of the suffering of samsara and gains confidence in karma and result. So this inevitability that the things that we do will rise up when the conditions are proper. So that can be good conditions, that could be good karma, it can be bad karma. So, the person who has had a very bad life all their lives, and they've lived in a war zone, and they've killed lots of people, and then they're locked up. They're tried for war crimes after the war is over, and they're put in prison. But while they're in prison, the situation comes up, the conditions are ripe for them all of a sudden to be able to get religion, so to speak. And they're able to not only help themselves, but they're able to help other people, despite the fact of all the things that they've done. And now the place that they're in, now the conditions were right for that person to be able to concentrate one-pointedly on their true nature. And now all of a sudden they get the spiritual awakening.
Chuck Colson, right?
What's that?
Chuck Colson.
I don't know who that is.
He was one of the Watergate burglars.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew the name sounded familiar, but what's that have to do with this?
He went to prison for Watergate and found religion, and it changed his life. And he came out and had a ministry, and a very interesting dude.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're describing.
And most of the Dharma palas, the Dharma protectors that we talk about in Buddhism and Vajrayana Buddhism, have that experience that they were doing terrible things. And then they had this moment of epiphany after doing all these terrible things. And then they vowed the rest of their lives to bring other beings to enlightenment. And then they build the Dharma facilities. They're the ones who print the books. They're the ones who protect the books and so on like that. So they use their power. They may have physical power because they were doing all these terrible things, but now they're channeling that physical power now for the benefit of the Dharma being, preserved for other beings and so on. So this speaks of inevitability, that when the conditions are right, that karma will come up. It could be bad karma. It could be somebody who all their life has been very pure, done very good things, but then in the right situation, or the wrong situation, they get very angry and they're capable of taking somebody's life or stealing somebody's money or doing terrible things that become life-changing things to other people.
How about when infants and children die? Let's say I'm an infant, I get SIDS, I die. That's karma.
That's karma. That's karma. It's not an easy thing to comprehend. It's not an easy thing to accept. But we don't know what that life of that child did for that family, for the time that child was with that family, and for other beings that it might have met, as well as the other people that are associated with that child who dies. Not to mention what it was that child did in previous lives, and not so much that it's literally that child. It's not literally that person. It's that things that were done in past lives by many people coalesced at this particular time. And that changes occurring to understand. That's the most difficult thing to be able to accept. How does that work? But my experience with it, limited experience that I have, has been that there is this vibration. I use this explanation many times, that there is this vibration that we are a part of. And this vibration is going through us all. And it's like, got this kind of bandwidth, if you will, and either we harmonize with that, or we become like an aberration in that, a disharmony in that. So there's like a bubble that is happening in this big vibration that's going through. And that vibration, that disharmony is something that a person or a group of people or something like that did. There's a karma there, and we ascribe to that. We are ascribed to that. And we don't recognize it until it comes up and we can see that.
And then when I'm aware that I'm out of harmony, what do I do if I want to be back in harmony?
You begin to harmonize. You begin to learn about spirituality. You begin to learn about morality. You begin to learn about the 10 virtues and the 10 non-virtues. You begin to learn about the 84,000 emotions and the 5 basic poisons. We begin to look at all the basic components of this, as we express it in the Buddhism. But, Buddhism is not exclusive. You can learn these ideas in Christianity or in Judaism or in Hinduism or in Muslim. You can learn all these things there too.
I can get there intellectually.
Yes.
I can get there with the little mind is.
You can get there, yes, but then you need to practice it. Then you need to become the embodiment of that. So you need to practice that. So in whatever tradition that's being espoused in, then there is part of that tradition that becomes the practice of that.
Okay.
And if we don't align ourselves with the practice, then we're just doing it vicariously. And there's a big difference.
Right.
I mean, do you agree with that? What do you think about that?
I think it's right on target and obviously more easily said than done.
I mean, okay, I'll leave it there. So what we're presenting in these classes is, number one, the academics of what all this is. Here are the lists. Here are the points. Here are the interconnecting things and so on that we're talking about, but it's all vicarious stuff. The next step is to bring it in and have your own experience with this, to have gnosis. You know what, does anybody know what gnosis is? The word gnosis? Gnosis is a Greek word, as far as I understand, that means to know, but not to know here, to know here.
Knowledge, yes.
But it's not knowledge that you hear. It's knowing. It's knowledge of becoming that. You know, so they.
That's wisdom.
What's that?
That's wisdom that you're describing.
Well, there's temporary wisdom, and then there's an absolute wisdom. You know, and going back to, you know, the Jesus, the Christ example, that he grew up in a time, he lived in the time of the Gnostic Gospels. Have you ever heard of the Gnostic Gospels?
Sure.
The Gospels that were discovered in 1947 in what was it, Iraq or wherever, the Nag Hammadi scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Dead
And
Sea
these were,
Scrolls.
what's that?
The Dead Sea Scrolls, yeah.
Yeah. And these were books that were, you know, cut out of the Bible, you know, but they're called the Gnostic Gospels because they spoke of the culture that Jesus was part of, that was there, that died out by the time of about 200 AD, because it was so radical in its thoughts and its behavior that it either died out on its own accord, or it was totally suppressed by the Romans at the time. So this Gnosticism was the idea, these were the knowers. These were the ones who went off to the mountain. These were the ones who became, you know, these transcendent beings, of which Jesus was an example, or was the spokesman, or maybe he was just a coalescence of all these beings, and say, okay, let's create this guy named Jesus. So this Gnosticism is implicit in all of this knowing. This is to become enlightened. This is the analogy, you know, to become enlightened, to know. So how do we do that is through the practice. That's the point I was trying to make. We can learn all this, but until we actually go off to the mountain, which is symbolic of just being able to go someplace isolated and be able to develop one-pointed mindfulness to the point that you're going inside and that you are transcending your physical body and your intellectual body. And we all know that there are many, many cultures that support this for eons upon eons. So it's a matter for us now where we are to be able to say, okay, that's the next thing I'm going to try.
That puts me in mind, and I may have this wrong, but the article you sent out,
Yes.
there's discussion there about how West has converted, or the purpose of the purpose of meditation being a path to enlightenment. But the West has made it more like, I forget the analogy they use, aspirin or something. I mean, it's
Right.
something we do at a much more trivial level to deal with momentary.
They've commercialized it to a high degree, but it's not everybody.
Yeah.
It's not everybody. There are some really high people who are Americans or Western people who really understand what that message is. So high that they don't have to be Tibetans to be able to be liberated.
But I think what's misleading about that is that meditation can also work as an aspirin. It doesn't get you to enlightenment.
Well, it depends how far you want to go with it.
Right. I mean,
It depends how, how many sessions do you want to engage in? And what becomes the system that you use to do that?
but well, I don't know how.
How much medicine do you need to take?
Right.
If I take one aspirin, is that going to take care of my headache? Or do I need to take 2 every 4 hours and until the headache goes away? And then, by the way, when you take it, you should lay down for 15 or 20 minutes. But if you're going to take the aspirin and you're going to go back to work and go back into the pressure tank, it's not likely that it's going to work very well. Rebecca, you had a point?
No, I was hiding the fact that I was about to sneeze.
Oh, I'm sorry. It
I'm
looked
good.
like you were going to say something.
No,
So what do you think about that, Ed?
I'm over my head. I think, well, if I'm upset and I'm agitated and I'm out of sync, and I meditate for a while, I mean, I calm down, or I may. And in that sense, it does work like an aspirin. But I think what I got from this article is that the Western world is inclined to use it like aspirin, or parts of the Western world are inclined to use it like aspirin as the primary purpose.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
And they've
but
lost enlightenment.
but we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Hopefully not.
it seems like there's this whole concept of cultural appropriation
Mhm.
at play
Yeah,
in the Western world,
and
right?
he used that word in the article, appropriation. Yeah.
When Madonna decided that she was going to go all, Jewish mysticism, right? She got all hung up on Kabbalah. Man, that was irritating. Because you can take a couple of Kabbalistic concepts, westernize them, and run around acting like you've come up with something very clever. It's easy to take Eastern mysticism and turn it into something that it isn't. Christianity, in many ways, was taking Jewish concepts into a Greek context where they had different expectations, and they took on a different life and a different meaning out of their original context. I guess the reason I spoke up is that the place where I stumble in all of this is in its trappings, right? In where we try to kind of put an edifice around it.
Well, you just used the right word, trappings. What does that mean? They're traps.
Exactly.
They're
Exactly.
traps.
Though I can tell you, I had an experience over the last 3 or 4 days that was very painful, and was a loss. It was a deep emotional loss for me. and getting, just kind of taking off all of that extra stuff and getting clear that this was impermanence, right? I had had something in my life that brought me some joy, and it was in its very nature, like everything, impermanent. And just sitting with, not meditating to make it feel better, but meditating to really get to my core that that was always a loner,
Mhm.
right? By the very nature of the way the world works.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
It was very, very helpful. It did not make me feel better.
No, that's very wise of you to recognize that and apply that. Yes.
What could you define what you mean by helpful in that sense? Because it didn't, absence of feeling better, in the absence of feeling better.
Well, so I experienced it as a huge loss.
Mhm.
Like I found myself crying in improbable I burst into tears in the middle of my Pilates class, right? I was just, you could feel the lack of the missing,
Mhm.
right? And it was very hard to be with, and being able to take the understanding, right? The genuine belief, right? Not a belief in, not a belief in God or a belief in some higher power that's going to, take care of things, but the genuine belief that the reality that we live in is that everything is impermanent.
Mhm.
And being able to just go, all right, and this is part of being impermanent, right? This was my friend, and I loved him, and he's gone. And that's how it rolls. It still hurts, but it doesn't hurt like I'm going to die.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Anybody else have a comment about this? The topics of karma.
When, when uh, when we have problems and they're problems that get to your heart, get to where the things that you love. When we get the understanding from these problems, it sticks with you more than reading in a book. And what the Tibetan situation is here is that experiencing these things, making them part of your own life, bringing them into your consciousness, and understanding and knowing that they're real and not just words on a piece of paper. That's what the thing about this Tibetan Buddhism is. Buddha said, here's my idea. Try it. And if it works for you, fine. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine too. But in order to try it, you have to take it all the way inside. You can't just leave it there at the doorstep. You've got to take it inside. And everybody, or a lot of people, bring it to the doorstep, set it down there. But they don't bring it inside. You have to bring it inside.
Yeah, well, we can't condemn people because that's what they do.
No, 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 no,
We
no.
have,
Not
forgiveness.
condemning.
we have,
Just,
you know,
just,
we allow people to move at their own speed. Everybody's moving in their own speed, has their own lives. And what might be right for somebody right now may not be right for somebody, maybe for another 5 years or maybe another lifetime or something like that.
that's true.
So,
True.
you know, and we all have to recognize that, you know, we're dealing with it in our own way. You know, people might say, I sometimes think myself, I oversimplify things. You know, if I talk about these things with the lamas, for instance, you know, they'll go on, you know, talking all about all this, you know, stuff, and I just get deeper and deeper and deeper in the minutia of the stuff. But, you know, to me, I'm saying, well, just keep it simple, you know, and they might think I'm oversimplifying.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense to me, you know, and I feel, you know, I have that equipoise. I have that balance. I have that strength. So if it's that simple and it's giving me that, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
So my point is saying that everybody has their own balance. Everybody has their own thing, and we have to allow everybody their own space in this.
I think though that William's analogy is a good one. I mean, and I think if I'm honest about it, I've been leaving it outside all my life. I mean, probably because I don't make it simple enough.
Okay.
Get to the doorstep and I start intellectualizing it to death, and then I just say, well, maybe this is a wrong door. I'll go next door.
Right.
I mean, I think that's, see Michael smiling, but yeah, it's tough.
You know,
So you think like the transmigration of karma into like a fetus is like simple to you? I mean,
To
to
me?
me, that is like so supernaturally complex that I have, you know, a serious problem dealing with that issue.
well, it's like a miracle.
I mean, it would take, I mean, how would you keep track of, you know, like I said, the 15 quintillion animals karma, and that this karma goes into this animal, or this
Well,
karma goes into
why do
that
you-
human, or it would just be, it would, to me, it would take like a god to be able to
well,
orchestrate that,
well, why do you want to do that?
because I thought that's how it worked.
What, to know all of that?
No, but for someone, if your karma gets transmigrated into the fetus or whatever, then there has to be some type of natural process that.
Do you think, wait a minute, do you think that there are natural laws that maybe you don't recognize?
No, but I don't consider these. I consider these supernatural. I don't
Okay.
consider this natural at
All
all.
right, so what about gravity? Do you accept
Yeah,
gravity as a natural law?
definitely. Yes.
How about electromagnetism?
Yes. And
Okay,
evolution.
you've experienced those, right?
Yes.
Now, what
I
about
can-
the strong force? What about the weak force? Have you experienced those?
No, but I mean, I definitely.
But you know they're there, right?
If science can reproduce them and use the
Okay.
scientific method,
Then
yeah.
what about spiritual scientists who point out that there is karmic law?
And no, I don't consider that the same credibility because, I consider a lot of it just the place where they, the place and time. I mean, the classic example is like Richard Dawkins said if he was born before Darwin, he wouldn't have been an atheist. Well, who knows what the Buddha would have believed if he was born today with, evolution and genetics and, all this scientific basis. I think to me, it's a product of the time and place where these ideas were formulated. And, I could be wrong, but that makes sense to me. And these Hindu beliefs just predominated in India where the Buddha, the Buddha lived. And
Well, how about Jesus? Didn't Jesus say a similar thing?
I don't think Jesus said anything about rebirth or karma or anything like that. And Jesus doesn't go anywhere for me because Christianity believes Jesus is part of the Trinity and it's a God. And it's this totally supernatural idea that it doesn't. I have no. It's not attractive to me at all.
But in terms of karma, didn't Jesus speak in terms of karma? He said something to the effect of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, you do good deeds and good deeds will happen to you. You do bad things and bad things will come and happen to you.
Right. And I once again, I have no problem with the.
But isn't that, is that supernatural?
No, I don't think so.
Then why is karma different than that?
The karma in terms of the transmigration of karma at rebirth to me is.
Well, how about just in this lifetime? Do you see karma? Can you see karma happening in this lifetime?
Once again, I don't think an infant dying of sudden infant death syndrome has anything to do with karma.
Okay.
Grant, I want to back you up here. Well, a little while ago, I said something about, kind of getting out from the trappings that go around sort of the fundamental parts of how I understand this stuff. And some of it, and I think all religions have some element of, let me make it into an analogy that will make it easier for people to understand kind of how it works, but it's not literal. And science is more literal, right? We can look at DNA, right? We can decompose the strand of DNA and know exactly what segment makes your eyes blue or whatever. I don't think anybody's going to be able to take something apart and say, look, I found the karma part right here. To me, it's more of an analogy. It's more of an explanation of something that we experience.
It's told.
But that part about, in my previous life, who was it? Somebody said it last week that, in a previous life, if, I was experiencing, something and I didn't deserve it from this life, that I must deserve it from a previous life because of my karma. And I can't get there. I can't get putting karma into a fetus. The analogy breaks apart for me there. So Grant, it's not just you. I struggle with that one too.
What about people who have abortions? Depending on where you think life starts, what about, that's probably an example that's very gray and difficult to conceptualize. I'm just throwing that out there into this conversation because I feel like, at what point does life start? Does it go from cells to now we're considering this life? So there's like there's legislation or there's laws that talk about it, that man-made laws that say life starts at this point. But from a spiritual perspective and part of this discussion, Lance or anyone else, I'm just kind of curious about that as well.
That's a good point.
Well, the life begins when the entity enters the body, which could be anywhere between the time that it's in the father's loin or several weeks or months after birth. So, you know,
So my question would be like,
you're
mother,
just throwing numbers, you're throwing wood on fire.
so my question would be, is it the mother who's making the choice to end the life of a pregnancy? Is that then she's imposing that onto an unborn life, right? Right. So whose karma is that? Is that a shared karma? And I don't know the answer to this. I'm literally thinking about this. It seems like a very difficult example to tease apart, for me at least.
Well, I don't think it really worries. I don't think it's of any concern unless you're involved in it. And
Well, what about a nation? What about a nation who either supports abortion or who restricts abortion? And then by what criteria do they restrict it? So do we have a common responsibility to that?
What makes you think that abortion is incorrect? Or what makes you think that it's correct? You know, abortion is a process that happens, and when it happens, usually a young, they don't allow over a certain length of time in the womb before they cannot abort anymore. So legally, legally we're talking about something that is not viable. It wouldn't live if it was outside the womb.
All right, well, let me try and let's not get caught too much in these individual things, which are important. I'm not trying to, but we do have limited time. And I do want to try and make a point. And that is, do we think, each and every one of us, think that what we are thinking is true just because we're thinking it?
I don't.
Or say that again.
This is Zara for myself. I don't think I don't think anything that I think from my perspective is necessarily true on any given day.
All right. So then what I'm trying to get to then, so the next question is there a way of thinking? Is there a way of consciousness raising beyond this ordinary intellectual discussion that we're having to experience life, if you will, in a different perspective, from a different point of view? And what I'm speaking of course, is meditation. That there is a way of being able to focus our energy with one-pointed mindfulness to rise above that which we think is true, or that we're holding on to as true, and experiencing things in a different way. Do we think that there is validity in that? And is there danger in that, to the point that we become, oh, we can't go down that path. We can't do that. I'm gonna wind up injuring myself. I'm gonna wind up in hell, or whatever you may conceive of. So what do you think about that idea? Grant, what would you say about that?
I didn't totally follow that. I mean, I'm a big believer in meditation and using it to eliminate this dualistic perception. But in terms of, does meditation bring about the life's big questions, such as how does life start, or cures for cancer or evolution, then I don't think it would be that useful.
Okay. Tom, what do you think? We can't hear you.
See, I've always been a Buddhist. I've known nothing else but Buddhism. Both my parents are Buddhist. I was raised and born in a Buddhist country. So my perspective is completely different from a lot of viewers. A lot of people here are learning Buddhism and trying to intellectually conceptualize the concept of Buddhism and stuff. You know? So as I hear, listen to your thoughts and to your perspectives, it's very interesting. My father was a French Canadian. He was French and Irish, born, raised Roman Catholic. Entered the World War II at 16, fought in Germany. Then he went to Korea, fought in Korea, and became a prisoner of war for 2.5 years in Korea. And he converted to Buddhism. He stayed in Korea for about 30 years after the war. And I had asked him if he had any resentment towards the North Koreans or the Chinese. Because when he was released from POW camp, he was 86 pounds. And he told me, Thomas, there is no resentment here. If there was such a thing as karma, this is my karma. And he accepted it. And he said, by not accepting it and by having resentment and hostility and anger towards it, it'll just manifest itself again and again and again and again. So he taught me more about karma right there at that moment than all the times that I would go with my mother and stay with them in the monasteries with her. By having such a big heart and accepting and realizing what had happened to him, is nothing to be angry about. But he was very, very, very mindful and appreciative of the things that he learned from that experience. So,
Okay, thank you.
that's my perspective.
Does anybody else have a comment? We don't have a lot of time left, but if someone has something they want to speak about, I was asking the question specifically about meditation and being able to transcend what we accept as being true, and and exploring that possibly there's something else beyond what we hold to be true.
There is
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ed. Sorry.
there's a recurring line in the novel A Separate Peace, which won a Pulitzer Prize in the early 60s.
Wasn't that Knowles?
Knowles, yeah, right. And the line is, and it recurs through the book. A level of understanding deeper than thought, which contains the truth. And that just came up in my mind when you asked us what exists beyond what we think, but I can't get my mind around a level of understanding deeper than thought. I think it's there. My thinking just does not, yeah.
Heart thoughts,
Right. Okay.
heart thoughts.
Zara, I cut you off.
No,
Sorry,
no.
yeah.
Okay. I was just gonna say, Lance, to more like directly answer your question from my own narrative and journey, because I've grown up like everyone else in a hodgepodge of different religious contexts and experiences. For me, like the meditation, first of all, doesn't have like any harmful effect on me or like conflicts with any of those other systems that I've been either exposed to or in my learning history. And also like I talk about this, I start sharing my light bulb moments now from like the last year or so, where I'm starting to recognize the benefit of the meditation. So now Lance, I'll have these thoughts, I'll be angry at someone and I'll be like, now I'm able to conceptualize this thought will pass. Like I'll be in the moment now, like driving and very angry about something at work. And I'll have these thoughts where I'm like saying like really maybe not great things about someone, but I'm recognizing this is not going to be in your head in 30 seconds or less. Like you're about to make decisions or send emails or cuss someone out in your head, but this is going to pass in 2 minutes or less. So recognizing I'm about to create this reality over something so fleeting. So I've started to have this awareness, and I can almost measure it in a tangible way where I can de-escalate myself now so quickly because I've become so attuned to how quickly this happens. And then I form a reality off of these thoughts that really doesn't need to exist. I don't need to take actions off these things that are just emotional responses because of attachment, like the samsara aspects of samsara. So I just wanted to share that with you, like to more directly answer your question that you've posed to the group. I've found it incredibly beneficial and helpful as an instrument to free myself and find content daily.
Michael, you had something you wanted to say a little while ago.
Yeah, I meditate so that I can see the ephemeral nature of my thoughts.
What does
So that
ephemeral mean?
The existing only in a flash.
Inexpressible. Inexpressible?
No, it means in a moment. It's like here and gone.
Okay. That's effable. What I'm thinking of is effable.
Yeah,
Fleeting,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's fleeting. Okay, so that's the main reason that I meditate, is to recognize that my thoughts are ephemeral. They're as the most impermanent part of me, and for the most part they're about me, and for the most part one could do completely without them, and just be fine with a more of a clean, clear awareness of life. It's practical to have thoughts because everybody's thinking, and that's how we're communicating. But we're mostly communicating out about ourselves' place in the world and our relationship with other people, and it's basically creating binaries. We're thinking so that we get to say, I'm going to put this in this box, and this goes in this box, and I judge that to be cool, and I judge that to be stupid, and I judge. So most of our thinking is reflecting back to ourselves around our experience, our selfish experience in life. Very little of it is about love, because love doesn't really take thought. So you've got a few things that don't take thinking. Love and care and loving kindness and awareness and equanimity. These are things that we experience. And I think some of the things that we experience that we can't articulate are some of the things that are most real. So what we think is real to us, but as Zara said, they're for sure not true. I mean, there's nothing true about what I'm thinking. It's all just mental garbage. It's just masturbation.
We got to visit again, Michael. I need some therapy.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to say? Because it's past 9 o'clock, and if anybody has the last word.
I have been working with psychics. So it's interesting when you it's interesting when you meditate, because when you meditate, you can get into different areas of the brain, and you can get into different modalities. That has nothing to do with karma. The meditation and the psychic awareness, the third eye that you're talking about when you're that we're talking about in our prayers here. Boy, it's all here, it's all there. But you can go beyond where you think you can go. You can go beyond where you think you can go. And that goes for everyone that's here.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you're right.
Thank you.
All right, if we can say our dedication prayers, we dedicate all the wisdom that we've unearthed here, all the skillful means that maybe has arisen from our discussion, changes of mind, or at least opening up the possibilities. So page 20 and page 21 and 22. So if we can recite this together out loud. So I'm on this book here. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikampa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. Those are all the spiritual, all the enlightened ones. May the virtues collected in the three times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate word of virtue not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mothers sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, ah, hom. Om, ah, hom. Om, ah, hom. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. So thank you all very much.
You can go turn the water back on now.
Thanks. So next Saturday night, we're going to take a break. We'll do Thursday night Medicine Buddha, and we'll do Friday night Bardo Todal, but Saturday night, we're going to take a break. So next Monday, we will be back together again for Buddhism 101, if everybody's okay with that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Right. And what I want to do real soon is have a practice. And you guys that are in Virginia near Fairfax, I would love for you to come to the center and come for a few hours. Ed, Rebecca, Michael, Grant, and Tom, and there'll be some other people there. And we have a practice session and try and, break through a little bit of, holding back and try and have a practice experience. So I hope that you'll agree to that. And those of you who can't be with us because you live far away, we'll do it on Zoom so you can be with us together. And, our spirituality is timeless and it is spaciousness. So it doesn't matter where you live, where you happen to be, we'll all be together at the same time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing
Thank
you all.
you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Grant. All right, see you all soon.